I always believed that love was supposed to be simple. I mean, when I married Sarah, my high school sweetheart, I thought we had it all figured out. We were young, in love, and our future was gleaming with promise. I could still remember our wedding day, how she looked in that gorgeous white dress, her smile brighter than the sun. Fast forward 6 years, and things had taken a turn I never expected. Life had settled into a routine. I was working my way up at an IT company, while Sarah had started her own small business selling homemade candles. It was cute, at first, seeing her so passionate about her side hustle. But as the months passed, I began to notice subtle changes in her behavior. She spent more late nights at work, became increasingly secretive about her phone, and even started dressing differently. It wasn't just casual clothes anymore. She had traded in her sweats for tighter outfits and high heels, which I never minded before. But the sudden shift raised a red flag. One evening, I returned home early, looking forward to a quiet evening together. I had planned a nice dinner and even grabbed her favorite wine. As I stepped inside, my heart sank. The house was empty, but her car was in the driveway. I shrugged it off, thinking she might have been caught up in some last-minute orders. But as the minutes turned into an hour, my unease grew. I decided to check her phone, which was laying on the kitchen counter. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Invading her privacy is wrong. But in that instant, intuition screamed at me to do it. As I scrolled through her messages, my heart raced. There it was, messages from a guy named Jake. They were flirty, playful, and increasingly intimate. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. The world around me blurred as I read through their exchanges. It wasn't just innocent chatting. They were planning to meet up to do things that were supposed to be ours. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Sarah, my Sarah, how could she betray me like this? I felt a mix of anger, confusion, and an inexplicable urge to confront her. So I waited. The door finally clicked open and she walked in, her face brightening when she saw me. It only took a second for that light to dim when she noticed the look on my face. "Hey babe, you're home early," she said with a forced cheerfulness that made my skin crawl. "Can we talk?" I said, my voice steady but my heart pounding. Her expression shifted. I could see a flicker of fear or perhaps guilt. Sure, what's up?" I didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I know about Jake." Her face paled, and in that moment I watched her mask crack. "What are you talking about?" she exclaimed, the indignation in her voice failing to convince me. I replayed the messages in my head, the words feeling like daggers. "The messages, Sarah. I saw everything, the plans, the flirting. You think I wouldn't notice?" She stammered, looking for a lifeline that wasn't there. "It's not what you think. He's just a friend, I swear." I wanted to laugh, but I couldn't. Instead, I felt the rage bubbling inside me like a volcano ready to erupt. "A friend? Really? How many friends do you text like that?" The confrontation spiraled from there. She threw out excuse after excuse, her voice rising with every denial. I saw anger flash in her eyes, mixed with something else. Was it fear, shame? Whatever it was, it felt like she was grasping at straws. I could see the facade she had built around herself start to crumble. "I can't believe you would do this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, the weight of betrayal settling heavily in my chest. "You've been lying to me this entire time." Her response was a desperate attempt at manipulation. "You've changed, too. You're always working late. You don't even notice me anymore." So, in that moment, I learned that the woman I loved had become someone I hardly recognized. The woman who promised fidelity and love was now a stranger, and with that realization came an unshakable determination. I wouldn't let this slide. I needed a plan. As she continued to plead her case, I let her words wash over me, but I was already formulating my response. I had spent enough time being the understanding husband. Now it was time to turn the tables. I watched her beg for forgiveness, but inside I felt a sense of clarity. This was my chance to take control of a situation that had spiraled out of my hands. I knew that facing this betrayal would not be easy, but I was resolute. I had to reclaim my life, and that meant setting the stage for my revenge. The thought sent a shiver of excitement down my spine. The days that followed the confrontation were a blur. I went through a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, disbelief. I felt like I was living in a bad movie where the script had been written without any input from me. Sarah tried to act as if everything was normal, but there was no way I could pretend that nothing had happened. She would often approach me, her voice soft as she pleaded for another chance. I could see the desperation in her eyes, but instead of sympathy, I felt a growing sense of determination to make her understand the depth of her betrayal. That weekend, I decided to take a different approach. I couldn't just sit around and let her antics continue. I needed to gather more evidence to illustrate just how much her actions affected me. So, I turned to an old friend of mine, Mike, who owned a small surveillance company. It felt wrong to invade her privacy further, but I was fueled by a fiery combination of heartbreak and rage. "Mike, I need your help," I said when we met. I explained the situation, and he nodded with understanding. He had always had a knack for technology and had helped me out in tough situations before. We set up a plan that involved discreetly following Sarah after she claimed she was going to run errands or meet friends. I felt a mix of excitement and dread as I left Mike's office that day. This was unlike me. I had always believed in confronting issues head-on, but things had changed. I needed to know the truth, and I was willing to go to great lengths to uncover it. The following week, I went through the motions of life, trying to feign normalcy. I went to work, came home, and engaged in small talk with Sarah. To the outside world, we appeared to be just another couple going through a rough patch. But inside my heart, the storm was raging. One day, I received a text from Mike while I was at work. "Got something. Meet me tonight." My heart raced. I didn't know what to expect, but I had a gut feeling that it wouldn't be good. As I drove to his office, I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. When I arrived, Mike had footage ready on his screens. My heart sank as I watched Sarah laughing and flirting with none other than Jake outside a local cafe. They were so at ease with each other, sharing drinks and leaning in close. The way she tossed her head back and laughed at something he said hit me like a punch to the gut. I could feel the heat rising in my face. Anger and sadness collided within me. "Do you want to see more?" Mike asked, but I shook my head. I didn't need to see more. I had seen enough. I was now armed with undeniable proof of her infidelity. The reality of it all sunk in deeper. This wasn't just a random texting situation. This was a full-blown affair. My heart ached, but it also lit a fire of vengeance within me. As I drove home that night, I began to form a plan. I pictured Sarah and Jake together, imagining the laugh she had shared with him, the intimacy she had stripped away from our marriage. I wouldn't just confront her again. I would make her fully grasp the consequences of her actions, and I would do it in a way that left a lasting impression. I decided that I would pull out all the stops. I would turn the tables, make her feel the weight of her choices, and show her that actions have consequences. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about self-preservation. I needed to reclaim my power. I started mapping out specific steps. I would confront Sarah again, but this time I wasn't going to let her spin her web of lies. I would bring up the video evidence, catch her off guard, and watch as she faltered. I wanted to see her squirm under the weight of her guilt. I wanted her to understand that she had lost something precious, something that once thrived between us. Additionally, I decided I would reach out to Jake. I never considered myself the confrontational type, but there was something in me that wanted to speak with him directly. I wanted him to know the fallout of his actions too. He was as much a part of this betrayal as Sarah was, and I wasn't going to let him hide in the shadows. With each passing day, my resolve grew stronger. I could feel the transformation in myself, almost like a phoenix rising from ashes. I had the upper hand now, and no matter how hard it was, I was ready to face the consequences of her betrayal head-on. When the weekend came, I invited Sarah out for dinner. I chose a nice restaurant, hoping for an atmosphere that felt more like a date than a confrontation. As we sipped our wine and talked about mundane things, I felt the tension building. She was oblivious to the storm about to hit her, completely unaware of the plans I had put in motion. As dessert arrived, I paused, inhaling deeply, ready to unleash the truth. "Sarah," I said, my voice steady, "we need to talk." Her expression shifted slightly, a flicker of unease crossing her face as she put her fork down. "Okay, what's wrong?" "You know exactly what's wrong," I replied, leaning closer, locking eyes with her. The moment had arrived and I was ready to make her understand the gravity of her actions. It was time to unleash the truth and rip the facade apart. I pulled out my phone and opened the video. Let's talk about Jake. The atmosphere shifted instantly as I pulled out my phone, feeling the weight of the moment hanging heavy in the air. Sarah's face drained of color, and for a split second, I reveled in the realization that she understood the gravity of what was coming. I had her right where I wanted her. What do you mean? She stammered, her voice shaky. I pressed play, and the video filled the space between us with a haunting reality. There they were, laughing at that cafe, leaning into each other as if they were the only two people in the world. I watched her smile grow wide, the way she brushed her hair back, and my stomach churned. I could see the moment she turned her back on our marriage, and it cut deeper than any knife. This, I said, letting the video play for a few more seconds before stopping it, this is what you call just a friend. Her reaction was immediate. I can explain this is not what it looks like. Her voice rose, desperation creeping in as she tried to backtrack. Not what it looks like, I echoed, incredulous. You're kissing him like it's the most natural thing in the world. You think I'm that stupid? The urge to shout overwhelmed me, but I held it together. You've been lying to me, Sarah. All those late nights, those errands you were running, this is where you were, with him. I swear it's not like that. She insisted, but I could see the cracks forming in her facade. The pleading in her voice was no longer convincing. It was as if she realized that her lies were crumbling under the weight of truth. I leaned in closer. What was I to you while you were out with him? Just some guy to keep around while you found someone better. You think this doesn't hurt? That this doesn't shatter everything we built together? She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Instead, she squirmed in her seat, and I could see the reality settling in. Her hands trembled as she reached for her wine glass, taking a long sip as if it would somehow steady her. You have to believe me, she said, voice dropping to a whisper. It just happened. It was a mistake. A mistake, I repeated, incredulous. You call planning dates and flirting like that a mistake. You think you can just brush this off. This isn't just some silly fight we can get over. This is betrayal. She looked around as if hoping someone would swoop in and save her from this moment that was spiraling out of control. You're being unreasonable. She shot back, her voice breaking slightly. You don't understand how hard things have been for me. I needed someone to talk to. Talk to? Is that what you call it? I snapped back, my voice rising again. While you stripped our marriage bare, you think I would have turned a blind eye if you had just come to me. I would have listened, but you didn't even try. The tension was palpable. Other diners glanced over and she squirmed in her seat, clearly embarrassed. Yet I felt a sense of satisfaction wash over me. It was time she faced the consequences of her actions. Look, I continued, lowering my voice, I'm not here to fight. I want you to understand what you've done. I'm not a fool, Sarah. I see everything clearly now. You had every opportunity to be honest, yet you chose deceit instead. And for what? A few laughs with him. Tears welled up in her eyes as she realized how deep this wound cut. I never wanted to hurt you, she said, her voice trembling. I thought I could handle it. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. Then why didn't you stop it? I challenged. Why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you just talk to me instead of hiding behind your lies? Because, she said, her voice breaking, I thought you wouldn't understand. I thought you'd leave me. Why would I leave you if you were honest? I countered, feeling a mix of anger and sadness wash over me. You created this situation, Sarah. You chose him over me. You didn't think about how I would feel. You thought you could have it all. As she continued to beg and plead, I felt the emotional armor I had built around myself begin to shift. I was angry, yes, but I was also heartbroken. I had loved this woman, and now I was watching her unravel right in front of me. This isn't just about you anymore, I stated firmly. You've made your bed, and now you'll have to lie in it. I can't just forget this. I won't just forgive you and pretend everything is fine. Please don't do this, she begged, tears streaming down her face. We can work through this. I'll do anything. Anything. I echoed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. What's left to work through? Your trust is gone. My heart is shattered. You think I can just forget that you chose someone else? You think your empty promises mean anything to me now? I watched her face fall. The bravado she had displayed earlier was gone, replaced by a raw vulnerability that I had never seen before. I don't want to lose you, she whispered, her voice no more than a fragile breath. In that moment, I felt a surge of power coursing through me. I had the upper hand, and it was intoxicating. I had been the one who had hurt, but now I was in control. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to betray me. I stood up, throwing some cash on the table to cover the dinner, and her eyes widened in shock. "Where are you going?" she asked, panicking. "Home," I said coldly. "You can figure out your next steps without me. I'm done pretending." As I walked toward the exit, I could hear her voice chasing after me, desperate and broken. But I didn't look back. I needed distance, and I needed to think. The fight was far from over, and I had no idea how I would proceed. But one thing was clear. This would not end without consequences, and I was determined to make Sarah fully understand what she had thrown away. When I got home, I sat in silence, replaying the events of the evening in my mind. The emotional turmoil was overwhelming, but I also felt a sense of resolve. Sarah had crossed a line, and now it was time for me to decide what my next move would be. I wouldn't let her betrayal define me. I would rise above it and show her that I was stronger than she ever realized. The next step was more than revenge. It was about reclaiming my life and finding closure. I would make sure that she understood the complexity of her actions, and I would emerge from this stronger than before. Somehow, I would turn my heartbreak into power. The following days after my confrontation with Sarah were filled with a strange mix of clarity and chaos. I was already beginning to formulate my next steps, each one driven by a desire not just for revenge but also for closure. I couldn't allow her betrayal to linger in my mind without rectifying the situation, and I was ready to become the architect of my own destiny. I decided to reach out to Jake. I wasn't sure how I'd do it, but I knew it was necessary. He needed to understand that his actions had consequences, not just for me but for Sarah as well. I found him on social media and sent a straightforward message. "We need to talk." I knew this would either rattle him or send him into a panic. Either way, it would set things in motion. While waiting for a response, I focused on myself. I started hitting the gym again, pouring my energy into lifting weights and running. It was a welcome release for the pent-up anger and hurt I felt. Each drop of sweat was a step closer to reclaiming my power. The physical exertion helped clear my mind, and I found comfort in the rhythm of my breath, the pounding of my heart. I was transforming my pain into strength. Eventually, Jake responded to my message, and we arranged to meet at a bar downtown. I felt a surge of adrenaline course through my veins at the thought of finally confronting him. I arrived early, ordering a drink to steady my nerves. A part of me felt uncertain about what I would say, but another part of me was ready for this confrontation, eager to demand answers. When Jake walked in, he looked exactly like I had imagined, confident, with an air of entitlement that made my skin crawl. He spotted me immediately and approached with a cocky grin. "Hey man, what's up?" I met his smile with a cold stare. "We need to talk about Sarah." His demeanor shifted instantly, the grin fading as he registered the seriousness in my tone. Okay, what about her?" I leaned in closer, wanting to make my intentions clear. "You know exactly what I'm talking about. How long has this been going on?" Jake hesitated, and in that moment I saw the cracks in his facade. "It was just a fling," he said, shrugging as if it were no big deal. "Nothing serious." "Nothing serious," I echoed, my voice rising slightly. "You think stringing her along while she's married is nothing serious. You've ruined my life and you act like it's just a casual thing." His eyes narrowed and I could see the gears turning in his mind. He tried to regain his composure. "Look, I didn't force her to do anything. She chose to come to me." "Yeah, and you didn't stop her," I shot back. "You could have told her it was wrong, but instead you played the part of the nice guy while she was lying to me." He shifted uncomfortably as I continued. "You think this has no repercussions. You think I'm just going to sit back and let this slide. I don't care how you justify it, you've crossed a line." Jake's bravado faltered. Okay, I get it, but you don't have to make a big deal out of this. It was just a little fun." I leaned in even closer, my voice low and steady. "It's a big deal to me. You think it's fun to tear apart someone's life. You've lost any right to play the victim here." He opened his mouth to respond, but I cut him off. "I don't want to see you near her again." If you value your life, you'll stay away from her for good. I'm not someone you want to mess with, trust me." He scoffed, trying to regain some semblance of courage. "You think you can threaten me, you don't scare me." I felt the anger rising, but I kept it in check. "This isn't just a threat, it's a promise. If I see or hear about you and Sarah again, I won't just be angry. I will make your life a living hell, and I'm good at that." I could see the realization wash over his face as the weight of my words sank in. "All right, I'll stay away," he finally muttered, defeated. "Good," I said, standing up. "Consider this a warning." I walked out of that bar feeling empowered. I had confronted Jake, stood my ground, and made it clear that I wouldn't let his actions define the narrative of my life. But I knew this was only one part of my journey. I still had to deal with Sarah. When I got home, I prepared myself for another confrontation. I texted Sarah, asking her to come over. I could only imagine the chaos that would ensue, but I was ready. I deserved to hear her side of things again, but this time I wouldn't be swayed by her tears or pleas for forgiveness. I needed to reclaim my narrative once and for all. When she arrived, I could see the anxiety etched on her face. "What did you want to talk about?" she asked, her voice cautious. I took a deep breath, feeling the strength of my resolve. I spoke to Jake. Her eyes widened, and for a moment I saw genuine fear. "You did. What did he say?" I met her gaze, unwavering. "He admits it. He knows about the affair, and he's agreed to stay away from you from now on. But let's be clear, this doesn't change anything between us." "What do you mean?" she asked, confusion written all over her face. "I mean that I can't take you back just because he promised to back off. You've betrayed my trust beyond repair," I replied, feeling the weight of those words settle heavily in the air. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "You know I love you." "Love?" I scoffed, unable to hide the bitterness in my tone. "You don't get to throw that word around like it means something when you've been living a lie. Love doesn't cheat, Sarah." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away, needing to establish boundaries. "I need time to think. I don't want to make any rash decisions right now, but know that this isn't over." As she continued to cry, I felt a mix of sadness and empowerment. I knew that something had shifted in me, and while I still had so many unanswered questions, one thing was clear. I was no longer the passive husband waiting for an apology. I was taking charge of my life, and I was ready to face whatever came next. In the quiet of my living room, surrounded by the remnants of a life I once cherished, I made a vow to myself. I would take this experience and use it to grow stronger. I would not let betrayal defeat me. Instead, I would rise from the ashes and emerge as someone who could heal and thrive. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was determined to navigate it on my terms. The days turned into a blur of emotions after my confrontation with Sarah and my meeting with Jake. I felt like I was living in a surreal state where everything around me had shifted. I was no longer the man who would do anything for his wife. I was now the man who had been betrayed, and I was determined to reclaim my life. After giving Sarah some space to reflect on her actions, I decided to take a step back and focus on myself. I started spending more time with friends, reconnecting with those I had drifted away from during our marriage. I hit the gym more frequently, pushing myself harder, getting lost in the rhythm of weights and cardio. I started to feel stronger, both physically and mentally. Amidst this self-discovery, I also began to think practically about what my future would look like. I knew I couldn't continue to live under the same roof as Sarah without addressing the elephant in the room. The betrayal was too fresh, too raw, and I couldn't pretend that everything would magically return to normal. I needed to make a decision about our marriage, one that would either lead us to reconciliation or separation. One evening, as I was sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone, I came across a post online about healing and moving on. It resonated with me, especially the part that reminded readers that sometimes the hardest but most necessary choice is to let go of what no longer serves you. That was my wake-up call. I realized that I had been holding onto the idea of us for too long, despite the glaring truth that had shattered our foundation. I needed to talk to Sarah again, not just for closure but to lay everything out on the table. I texted her, asking her to come over for what I referred to as a serious conversation. I knew this would be difficult for both of us, but it was time to confront the reality of our situation. When she arrived, her expression was a mix of apprehension and hope. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling. I gestured for her to sit down. "We need to talk about our marriage, about what happened and where we go from here." The air felt thick with tension as I spoke. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since our last conversation. I can't keep pretending that things are okay when they're not. I can't forget what you did." "I know," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. "I messed up. I was selfish. I'll do anything to fix this, I swear." "But can you really?" I challenged, wanting her to understand the gravity of her words. "You've broken my trust in ways I never thought possible. You chose to betray me instead of coming to me when you felt alone. That hurts more than anything." "I know," she repeated, tears pooling in her eyes. "But we can work through this together. Please let me prove to you how much I love you." "Love shouldn't come with a price," I said, my voice steady but firm. "Love is built on trust and respect. You gave that up when you chose to sleep with someone else. You have to understand that this isn't just about forgiveness. It's about healing and deciding if we can rebuild what we lost." She paused, wiping her tears. "I don't want to lose you. I'll change, I promise. Just give me another chance." I felt a pang of sadness at her desperation, but I knew I couldn't allow my emotions to cloud my judgment any longer. "Sarah, I don't think I can. I need time away from you. I have to figure out what I want for myself. I need to see if I can even trust you again." Her face fell, and I could see her realization dawning. "Are you saying you want to separate?" "It's not what I want, but I think it's what I need right now." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my decision settle heavily on my shoulders. "I can't be in the same space as you and pretend that everything is fine. I need to clear my head and focus on what's important to me." She looked defeated. "I'll do anything to keep you. I love you and I don't want to lose our life together." I could feel my heart breaking, but I had to stay firm. "You may love me, but love isn't enough without trust. I can't live like this. I need clarity, and I think we both do." The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Finally, she spoke, her voice smaller than before. "I understand. If that's what you truly need, then I'll respect your decision, but I hope you'll reconsider. I'll fight for us." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. "I hope you do. But right now, I need to figure out who I am without you." We agreed to separate, and it was one of the hardest things I had ever done. The emotions swirled within me: sadness for the life we once had, anger at her betrayal, and a sense of freedom that came with the decision. As she left, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The next few weeks were a blur of mixed emotions. I spent time with family and friends, seeking comfort and support. I rediscovered hobbies I had neglected while in the relationship, finding solace in activities that brought me joy. I began to feel like myself again, and while the pain of betrayal still lingered, I was slowly learning to navigate a life without Sarah. I also sought therapy, wanting to unpack the emotional turmoil of the past months. I needed to understand how I could allow someone to hurt me so deeply, and I was ready to confront those feelings. Each session helped me process the betrayal and the pain, and I slowly started to piece myself back together. Despite my progress, I couldn't shake the thought of Sarah. I wondered how she was coping, whether she was truly fighting for our marriage or if she was simply grappling with the consequences of her actions. I wanted to believe that she could change, but I also knew that I had to prioritize my own well-being. One night I received a text from her. "I miss you. I hope you're doing okay." I was taken aback by the message. I had expected her to move on, to throw herself into her business, but here she was, reaching out. I hesitated before responding. "I'm doing all right, just taking things one day at a time." The exchange felt bittersweet. I wanted to be angry, to push her away for what she had done, but I also felt a sense of nostalgia for the life we had shared. We had been happy once, and I couldn't deny the connection we had. But that happiness had to be rebuilt from the ground up, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for that yet. "Can we talk?" she asked. "I want to explain some things." My heart raced. I didn't know if I was ready to confront her again, but part of me was curious about what she had to say. I agreed to meet her the following week, feeling a mix of hope and apprehension. As the day approached, I couldn't shake the feeling that this would be a pivotal moment in our story. Would she be able to express genuine remorse? Would I find the closure I desperately needed? Part of me was terrified to let her back in, but another part was willing to hear her out one last time. I had come a long way in my journey toward healing, and as I prepared for our meeting, I hoped it would help me understand if there was any chance for us to rebuild what had been lost. But no matter the outcome, I was ready to face whatever she had to say. The ball was in her court, and I was finally prepared to protect my heart. The day of my meeting with Sarah arrived, and I felt a whirlwind of emotions. It was strange to be gearing up for another conversation with someone I had once considered my partner for life, especially after everything that had happened. As the time approached, I found myself pacing around my apartment, wrestling with anticipation and dread. I arrived at the cafe early, choosing a quiet corner table where I could observe her when she walked in. The ambience was calm, contrasting sharply with the storm swirling inside me. I ordered a coffee, trying to focus on the warmth of the mug while the minutes ticked by. When she finally entered, I felt my heart skip a beat. She looked different, somehow fragile yet determined. Her eyes scanned the room until they landed on me, and I gestured for her to sit. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice soft and hesitant. I nodded, not trusting my voice just yet. The tension between us was palpable, the air thick with unspoken words and emotions. "First, I want to apologize," she began, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I've had time to think about everything, and I realize how much I've hurt you. I can't express how sorry I am for betraying your trust. I've been doing a lot of soul searching, and I know I made terrible choices. I just hope you can listen to what I have to say." I crossed my arms, bracing myself for whatever was to come. "Go on," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "I've started seeing a therapist," she continued, looking down at her hands. "I needed someone to help me understand why I made those choices. I thought I could fill a void instead of confronting my feelings. I thought I could have my cake and eat it too, and I was selfish, but I want to be better." I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but I was cautious. "Better in what sense, Sarah? You broke my trust in a way that can't just be fixed with promises." "I know," she replied, fear creeping back into her voice. "But I want to work on myself, and I know it will take time. I realize now that I need to respect myself first before I can even think about being with someone else. I'm not asking for forgiveness today. I just want you to know that I'm taking this seriously." Her words hung in the air, and I felt the old familiar ache return. I wanted to believe her, but so much had transpired. "What do you want from me, Sarah?" I asked, my voice steady but firm. "I want to show you that I can change," she said, her voice trembling. "I want to show you that I can be the partner you deserve. If you're willing to give me a chance, I promise to put in the work. I want to earn back your trust, but if you don't want to, I'll accept it. I just needed to say this." I took a deep breath, emotions swirling within me, conflict, sadness, hope. "I appreciate your honesty, but I need time to process this. Just because you want to change doesn't mean I'm ready to jump back into things. You shattered my heart, and it's not something I can just brush aside." She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I understand. I just wanted to be honest with you, even if it hurts. I know I've lost you, but I hope that one day you can forgive me. I want to be a better person, not just for you, but for myself." Her words resonated with me, and as much as I wanted to hold on to the anger, I could see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with. The pain was still fresh, but I also recognized that growth could come from this darkness. "I need to figure out what's best for me moving forward," I said, my voice softer now. "I can't promise anything, but I will consider what you've said. I need to heal before I can think about us." "Thank you for listening," she said, her voice breaking again. "I'll respect your space. Just know that I'm here and I'm willing to do whatever it takes." As we parted ways that day, I felt a mix of relief and uncertainty. The conversation had been difficult yet cathartic, a step toward healing that I hadn't anticipated. I had laid bare my boundaries, and while I wasn't ready to leap back into a relationship, part of me felt lighter. In the weeks that followed, I focused on my own growth. I dove deeper into therapy, exploring my feelings and understanding how I could take charge of my healing journey. I began to let go of the anger that had consumed me, finding peace in the fact that I was not defined by my past experiences. Sarah reached out periodically, sharing snippets of her own progress, and though the walls between us were still there, I could see that she genuinely wanted to change. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, I felt empowered to navigate it on my own terms. Ultimately, I learned that healing takes time, and it is a journey that is often messy. I could forgive Sarah, but I also needed to forgive myself for the choices I made during our marriage. I had allowed her betrayal to impact my self-worth, but I was ready to reclaim it. The experience taught me the importance of boundaries and self-respect. And while I didn't know if Sarah and I would ever find our way back to each other, I was ready to embrace whatever came next, whether that was rebuilding our relationship or moving on entirely. As I moved forward, I held tightly to the lessons learned and the strength gained amidst the heartbreak. The future was uncertain, but I was no longer afraid. I had emerged from the ashes not just as a survivor, but as a stronger, more resilient version of myself, ready to face whatever life had in store.